Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural Avocado Gamescast, organized by members of the AV Club After Dark community. I'm Merve, and I'm here today with BannerThief and TheKappa.
Yo.
Hey. How do you guys feel about starting up a podcast?
Video games, I guess.
I'm excited. I think it's going to be awesome.
That is the kind of enthusiasm I like to hear. Okay, so I figure that because this is the inaugural podcast, I figure we should introduce ourselves. I'm Merve, and what am I playing at the moment? I'm playing Mirror's Edge Catalyst, Digimon Story, Cyber Sleuth, and I just started Book 5 of Dreamfall Chapters. BannerThief, what are you playing right now?
So, as always, I'm always playing Crusader Kings 2. We'll be playing it forever.
Nice.
I just finished Doom.
The reboot?
Yeah, and I'm hoping to get into Dreamfall Chapters. I was waiting to start it until they were all out, and they now are all out, so I think I'll probably start that up sometime this week.
Yeah, it's been a good ride so far. Although, because there's 6 months between each chapter, I kind of forget what happened in the previous one. So I think you'll benefit from playing it all in one go.
Yeah, good. I also heard that they did some updates to it in the meantime to make it run better. So yeah, I'll be playing the best product possible.
Yeah, they upgraded, I think, to the newer version of Unity because they'd programmed it on the old one. TheKappa. What have you been playing recently?
Well, I literally just finished Witcher 3 yesterday. From start to finish, all the 2 new expansion packs. A lot of mixed feelings on that one. Starting up a Stellaris playthrough now. Trying to figure out what civilization looks the meanest. It's my main goal right now. And picked back up
Death and Destruction. Nice.
Yeah, picked back up Warcraft 3 because my wife wants to watch me play it for some reason after watching the So-So movie.
You actually went to watch the movie?
Yeah, she is a huge fan of Travis Fimmel, and I didn't get much say in the matter. Local theater was kind of doing a double feature with that and Popstar, so we actually saw both, and she loved Warcraft, never having touched any of the games, but so now she wants to hear more about the story, and the way I'm doing that is by replaying Warcraft 3.
Usually when somebody wants to watch somebody else play a game, it's something like Uncharted.
Yeah. Oh, this has probably happened about 3 times in 10 years of marriage, and every other time it's been something like BioShock or Assassin's Creed or something, more with a narrative. So this is very frustrating because she watches the cutscene, then I play through 45 minutes of a map, and then she watches the next cutscene. It's not exactly the best thing. I could probably just show her the YouTube videos, but Warcraft 3 does that weird thing where they have a little bits of story throughout the map, so I'm trying to give her the full experience if I can.
Okay, that sounds like a nice bonding experience.
Very romantic, I know.
Yeah, it'd be great if I get somebody to watch you, I don't know, sit down and play Roller Coaster Tycoon or something.
See all your murderous tendencies.
Oh, I was, whenever I played Roller Coaster Tycoon, I turned into, a little kid psychopath. And, I was playing this at, 11 years old. I would, make an exit to a ride over, a super popular ride over water, and, 80 guests would all, pour out of the exit all at once and just, fall to their deaths and drown. And I thought that was hilarious as an 11-year-old kid.
It is hilarious. Don't anybody tell you different.
Yeah. If 80 actual people drowning is a tragedy. 80, pixel people dying is hilarious. Alright, so that's what we've been playing recently. I thought that since E3 just happened, that would be a good thing to talk about. So, E3 did happen this week. And
I've got some thoughts on E3, let me tell you.
I do.
All right. Now, let me tell you back in my day. No. So, BannerThief, what are your thoughts on E3?
I thought most of the conferences were very underwhelming this year. Normally, I watch them for a mixture of big, exciting, oh my goodness, I never thought this game would be released announcements, kind of mixed in with, oh my god, I can't believe they went with this cringy bullshit kind of thing, which I didn't get as much of out of the Ubisoft conference this year, so I'm a little disappointed. Normally they're so good for the cringe, but not this year. This year they're just kind of incompetent.
Did it have those people coming out in like the striped sweatsuits?
Yeah.
That was Ubisoft, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't even remember what game they were promoting.
I can't remember either. They started off with a musical dance number, which was a good step towards cringe, but then they kind of just veered into underwhelming game announcements, and then I kind of got bored.
I will say, speaking of the Ubisoft conference, the one thing that they announced that I was actually super excited for was Grow Up, because I loved the original Grow Home. But I feel like that's the only thing I saw, out of that conference that was exciting, because I'm not interested in the next, Tom Clancy game. And I'm sure the South Park game will be fantastic for people who are into South Park, but I've never been into South Park, so it's not something I'm super excited for. I am excited to see Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Is this Trey Stone and Matt Parker? No, it's Matt Stone and Trey Parker.
Yeah.
God, I'm the worst. I'm always excited to see them on stage because they're funny dudes. Yeah, so they always manage to make the conference interesting. Yeah, overall not like terribly exciting. I don't know. What do you think, Kappa?
Oh, I think last year the big thing, of course, last year was that Fallout 4 surprise announcement. Took everybody by surprise. And I think a lot of people started to think, oh no, is this going to be like a new E3 thing where people are, surprised all of a sudden it's exciting to go to E3 anymore. It's less of a trade show, more of a, something for the gamers. And this year went right back to how it's always been, which is we knew about how many of these games, almost all of them, well before E3. There's not like a ton of announcements, no real big surprises, nothing we can, go home and download or, beta right now really, with a few exceptions. But
there was like Trials of the Blood Dragon or whatever, which apparently is a piece of garbage.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was excited for a new E3 after last year, and it seems like this year it just went right back to for the journalists, for the companies who already have all their own little days to announce whatever they want, and it makes sense. I mean, if I was a company, if I was EA, if I was Ubi, I would want all the news focused on me, not having to share it with whatever crazy announcement comes out. So it kind of makes sense from their perspective, but it turns E3 back into what it's always been, which is just more kind of a trade show than anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the announcements that would have been announcements were actually leaked the week before the show. So
it depends on how much you believe whether that stuff's an accident or not. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of
cynical.
Yeah, when it comes to games, I'm actually probably one of the more positive people. I get excited for the games themselves, but when it comes to the companies and things like that, I definitely get a little more cynical. I don't think those kind of leaks happen, 5 days in advance with a nice high-res video. It's nothing, it's always weird to me when that kind of thing leaks instead of, oh yeah, we just put it out early.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up this. I wanted to establish myself early as the chaotic one of the group. So I'll just go ahead and say I thought Nintendo's whatever that was a total garbage fire. They really only have 2 games to show, and they spent like 2 hours on each. Come on, you guys.
Yeah, I'll be the positive one, and I will say at least what they showed looked great, but I don't know. That's not making me rush out and buy an NX if they're only going to show me 2 games. I made that mistake with the Wii U. I regret. I have all the systems in a PC, and the only thing I regret right now is a Wii U, and that's just being straight up. And I don't know if Zelda's going to push me into an NX, honestly.
See, Nintendo's a company that I want to succeed, but I don't want to buy any of their things, if that makes any sense. Yeah. Like, I'm really glad they're making what they make, and I think I'd love to play, a Mario game or whatever, like Splatoon or whatever they're putting out on the Wii U, but they don't put out enough stuff for me to want to get their consoles.
And with no third-party support, really, it gets even more hard to argue, for Nintendo. If I was going to have a Nintendo console right now, and you said I could only own one Nintendo console, my answer would be a 3DS. I mean, you kind of get the best of both worlds at a much lower price point. It seems like they're constantly supporting it. You can play most of the Nintendo classics on there. I don't know. I mean, to me, it seems like 3DS makes more sense than even a new Nintendo system, which who knows how they're going to support it.
Yeah, I have no idea, and we haven't there hasn't been a lot of there haven't been that many legit leaks regarding the NX, so we have no idea if third parties are working on it or not. It's really hard to know at this stage what they're they won't even talk about what the NX is. We don't know whether it's a regular back to basics home console, whether it's some sort of console mobile hybrid. We don't really know anything at this stage.
Zelda did look great, though, I will say. I loved watching that gameplay footage. It really brought me back. That Fire Wand, I could spend hours with just messing with that alone.
Yeah, Zelda is one of those series I'm always constantly frustrated that they don't seem to try to do anything to update beyond changing the setting and maybe the art style, and maybe that's very cynical. I really liked some of the things I saw in the new one. It seems like they're trying to modernize a lot of different aspects of it to make it, some might argue, make it less Zelda, but I would argue make it less frustrating.
I agree. It definitely feels like it's getting a little more, I want to say Western influence, though that's not exactly correct, but things like crafting, things like armor with stats and all that sort of stuff just feels more like an RPG than a typical Zelda game.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, and they've had it was shocking to me how much stuff you could actually do in that game. And it's all very intuitive. You see a tree, you can chop it down. You see brush, you can set it on fire. At one point, they even showed off that you could take your slightly curved shield and use it as a makeshift surfboard to slide down a hill. So it's cool that you can do all this stuff. My one concern, having seen the demo or parts of the demo, is the world seems, I don't want to say barren, but it doesn't seem like there are many other people there.
Yeah.
There are no towns, as far as I can tell. Maybe there will be towns in the final game, but not in the demo area they showed off.
I'll tell you the one thing about Zelda 2 that I'm interested at is I'm even with games that have paper thin lore and things like that, I always get excited. And I heard that in this Zelda, they're somehow going to pull all the Zeldas together and make sense out of the timelines. Does Ganon win in this world and young Link dies and old Link becomes this? I don't know if you guys have ever followed that whole line of. So basically, Zelda is like one continuous event. It's kind of like this hero of time type thing. But so somehow this game is supposed to pull all of that together and condense the entire Zelda history into a game and kind of give it more of a starting point, and I guess going forward, kind of like a common basis for where Zelda goes as a series, rather than just each one feeling like its own new game.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure it's exciting for people who are really into Zelda lore. On a practical level, I don't know exactly what the value is of tying all these games together into sort of one continuity. It seems like a clever thing. If they can pull it off, then kudos to them. But I don't know if that's the
it's not a selling point, but I mean, if it's one of those things that you're interested in, the fact I think most people don't even realize that it was supposed to all be kind of this connected universe. But yep, it sure is.
I find it interesting that none of us brought up Pokemon. Do none of us care?
I've kind of aged out of that. That racket,
fair enough.
To be honest.
The last one I played was second gen, so I'm so far out of the loop at this point. I just look at the ice cream cone Pokemon and go, come on, guys. Yeah. That's what you got now?
I mean, I remember this very vividly. Back when I was in college, I was living in an apartment with a roommate, and one day I come home, and she just yells at me to come to her room. I was like, okay, I assumed I screwed up something or left the dishes out or broke a glass or something. I walk into her room and she's like, here, come look at this. And she shows me a picture of an anime bird. I'm like, oh, it's a bird. She's like, that's a new Pokemon. It's called Pidove. It's a pigeon and a dove mixed together. They're the same bird. You're mixing the same thing together. And she went on this gigantic rant about how much she hated the new Pokemon. And she's like, guess what it evolves to? It evolves into Tranquil. Tranquil with 2 L's. It's a horrible pun. And it made her furious that the Pokemon was literally just a bird that evolved into another bird. I think
one of the starter Pokemon is a little fire kitten called Litten.
Oh Lord. Yeah. Although I will say that the starter in this gen, the Owlbird, Rowlet, why do I call it Owlbird? Grass Owl. Rowlet looks really cute. I will say that. It's adorable.
I'll take your guys' word on it. I'm a Lego Dimensions man. We're a Lego Dimensions family. I don't got time for all the other
Lego
Dimensions. Yeah.
That game looks like a lot of fun, although it also looks like super expensive.
You're ready to just throw money into the toilet if you get into it, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, not a time in my life where I feel like flushing money down a toilet. But yeah, that seems like, I mean, it's part of the whole like toys to games thing. So they have like Skylanders, Disney Infinity, which apparently just shut down. Yeah. What's that all about?
Well, I feel like there's a potential there for Lego to snatch up any of those products. But yeah, I don't know if the profit wasn't there or if it was just too expensive to keep supporting it. Remember, Disney Infinity kept introducing new versions pretty constantly. So I think that was part of it.
It's like a victim of their own success?
Maybe.
I was actually looked over some of that conference call where they announced that, and it really sounds like, from what I gathered, it sounds like they just completely overestimated exactly how popular their brand would be in that space.
Oh,
and
no.
Skylanders and Amiibos have kind of come and gobbled up that space, and Disney wasn't nearly as hard. So it sounded like they just had millions of unsold figures in a warehouse that they weren't sure they were ever going to be able to sell. So at some point they decided to just take a loss.
And Disney has Marvel and Star Wars. If you want to talk about, two series that at least right now print money, that's crazy. That Skylanders just made up stuff, but Skylanders does. I haven't played any of them past, demos and stuff, but Skylanders does feel like it's evolving. You create a character and put him into the game, and that stuff they showed with Crash during the Crash demo for Skylanders, I thought looked pretty neat. But I would have rather seen more Crash gameplay personally.
I do have a soft spot for mascot platformers, and I'm like super excited for Yooka-Laylee and A Hat in Time and Lobo Destroyo and all these, and Psychonauts 2, obviously, like all these upcoming 3D platformers. So I'm kind of sad that it's just like a reboot of the old Crash that they're making, and not a remake of the old Crash, and not a rebooted entry in the series and just making a new Crash. That I'd be really happy to see.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I'll tell you, to me, there is one mascot platformer coming out, and it is called Cuphead, and I think it's probably the coolest looking game I saw at all of E3. Maybe not graphically, but stylistically, that game just looks amazing.
I do love the art style.
Yeah.
I know personally, I don't think the gameplay is really for me, because like those super hard platformers just tend to make me smash my keyboard or my controller in frustration. But the art style looks amazing and really, I don't want to say unique, because it's definitely aping old cartoons, but I've never seen that in a video game before. So yeah, that seems really neat. What else do you guys see out of E3 that was interesting?
I will admit that I kind of was into some of what the second Watch Dogs was going for. I thought the first one had a ton of potential that it failed to meet, because the idea of hacker GTA has there's so much there that you could do, but they killed that game with a glowering, boring protagonist that was just awfully written, and the gameplay was kind of naff. Yeah, and the driving was terrible, and just everything about that game could have been so much better. The second one seems like they're really leaning hard into the gloriously stupid ideas. They're leaning into the idea of what Hollywood thinks hackers are instead of what they are in real life, which I kind of like. I kind of want Hackers, the video game. I want Swordfish, the video game. So if they would lean a little more into that could be pretty great.
Yeah, I agree. To me, the hacker part is what makes Watch Dogs exciting. I don't know why you got to have gunplay and parkour and all that other stuff. I wish they'd be a little bit more unafraid with their game design and just really kind of get into that hacking idea where, maybe your guy isn't the most mobile, maybe he's not the best at shooting people with a gun, but he outwits or out-hacks his enemies and make the series about that. Because, I mean, it's hard when the guy's, a super soldier. I mean, who cares about hacking? That's what Watch Dogs turned into me. Well, if I can kill this guy from shooting him across the street, or if I need to hack 500 things to kill him, well, do the easiest thing almost every time, right?
Yeah, the real problem in Watch Dogs was that the gunplay was actually pretty okay for an open world game, which made it worse because it was just too easy to just pull out the silenced pistol they gave you in the first 10 minutes of the game and use that for the entire game because you could just kill everyone with that.
I think what they should do is give you more non-lethal options, like improve, the hand-to-hand stuff, and I don't know, give you a taser or a stun gun or something instead of making you this unstoppable killing machine.
Yeah, it's just too much. I mean, it makes the hacking more like, I don't know, like think about any video game you played where your guy can do magic or your guy has, some kind of skill tree, like biotics in Mass Effect. Well, why am I going to use that if I can just go through and shoot everybody in the head with one shot? It just kind of, you got to give them kind of more an incentive. But the hacking itself had little cool side features in Watch Dogs 1, but in Watch Dogs 2, it looks more like they're focusing on making it a part of the game, less just something you can choose to do.
That's the other thing. That's definitely true. And the other thing I think they're doing is it seems like they're leaning into the tone of the whole thing being kind of ridiculous. The first one was so dour and po-faced.
Yeah.
That you'd think it would try to take everything seriously, and it would brush up against all these important social issues, and then just completely fail to address them.
Yep. So I think setting that game in Chicago was the worst design decision, one of the worst design decisions they made, because then they just had you stuck as this boring, bland white guy in a white city interacting with almost no people of color except for one group of thugs that were, of course, black, that you mercilessly murder, which is just so tone deaf in this day and age that I find it interesting that they completely did a 180 and now have you play as a black American in the new one.
They solved racism. No, I don't know. Yeah, I will say that there's definitely the Rossi Fremont Towers from Watch Dogs 1 are supposed to be the stand-in for Cabrini Green. At one point, and correct me if I misremember this, don't you blow them up?
You don't blow them up, but you do storm them and then mercilessly murder everybody inside because I can't even remember why you're supposed to be doing that. You just do it.
Yeah. I think, okay, so the one thing that really sort of got my goat is there's that character who's sort of their leader, Iraq, right? And he's this Iraq war veteran, and he makes a speech to Aiden about how, we're all being controlled by the people, by the people in power, and we're being forced to fight wars on powerful people's behalf, both literally abroad and domestically here. And then after he makes a speech and you kill Iraq, you find out that he was actually just doing all this criminal stuff for the sake of greed. So it sets up this really interesting thing where this really interesting message where it's pointing out how the people in power are exploiting people like Iraq, and then turns around and makes Iraq a greedy asshole anyway. So the game just undermines itself at every turn when it comes to dealing with important issues.
Imagine if you had played that game as anybody else besides that main white dude.
Yeah. Or imagine if that game, and sorry to get super political here, imagine if that game had been released a couple of months later than it was, after the shooting death of Michael Brown.
Ooh. I
guarantee you the reception of that game would have been savage rather than when it was released a few months before. Yeah, so I'm glad they seem to be veering away from the tone of the first game, and if they know they don't have the balls to deal with important social issues, they might as well steer into the skid and just be completely goofy, and I welcome that.
I'd find it interesting that Ubisoft seems to have backslid on that. I remember when the first Assassin's Creed came out, and it was 2007, and it was a big deal that a game was talking about religion in such frank terms.
Yeah.
And they felt the need to include that crawl, like, oh, this game was made by people of many religions and sexual orientation. Now that just reads like a huge joke, considering that all those games are just murder, stab simulators in historical settings that bear so little connection to reality. I just don't understand how they backslid on that stuff. Maybe they just got more scared of rocking.
A lot of times, I think that companies will learn the wrong lesson from games' successes or failures, you know. And I think what Ubi learned from the Assassin's Creed series is that when they tried Assassin's Creed Liberation, nobody bought it, you know. And I think
it's a shame because that one was kind of cool.
Sure, but I mean, you know, a lot of times, like I say, you take away the wrong lesson. Well, nobody wants to play, you know, this character. Everybody loved Ezio, so let's make a more brash, a more out there, you know, character with. I'm going to forget Connor for a second because I think he was a total failure of a character. But then you know, make a new, more brash, more out there character, and then they lost the whole thread on the future state. So you know, Black Flag had its own kind of feel to it, but the game itself was great. But I don't even think of it as an Assassin's Creed game. I think it is a pirate simulator, you know.
Yeah, I think of it as an unofficial Sid Meier's Pirates reboot.
Sure. So I mean, you're right.
Game.
They gave up on trying to make any kind of important statements and started making, you know, at least in Black Flag's case, a really fun game. But I think a lot of that goes back to them forgetting what the series was about. You know, going back and changing history for the better and having a positive influence, you know, on mankind as an assassins organization was supposed to set out to do. Instead, it's just as after Rogue, I don't know who the good guys and bad guys really are. Unity, and I haven't finished it because it plays so bad on my PC. You know, I'm sure there's might be an answer in there, but at least as of the end of Rogue, who are the good guys and bad guys in Assassin's Creed? I don't even know.
I kind of abandoned the series midway through Brotherhood, so I have no idea what's going on in Assassin's Creed. But I will say this: the first Assassin's Creed is sort of repetitive, but it's the only one where you actually feel like an assassin.
Sure.
Right? And then you get to the second game of the series, and now every mission you're in a group of with three other quote unquote assassins, and you're in huge sword fights in the street. And then Brotherhood sort of continues that trend. So I've sort of lost the thread on it being an assassination simulator. And it's also sort of lost a thread on being about, like BannerThief brought up, being about, you know, religion and ancient mythology, and sort of just being a, you know, stab your way through Renaissance Italy sort of game. Yeah, I don't know what to make of Assassin's Creed, really. I keep saying one day I will beat Brotherhood. I think I started it back in 2013, and every few months I fire it up for 10 minutes, I play a mission, and then I remember why I stopped playing it. I think I'm like advancing through it at a rate of, you know, a mission every 3 months.
Yeah, I can see that.
Speaking to what Kappa said, that game series has so lost what it's trying to do. Rogue, specifically, for those who don't know, Rogue had you play as a member of the Templars, who have historically been the antagonists in the series, and they kind of tried to make stabs at, well, what if the assassins were really the bad guys? And then they just completely dropped that after that game and went right back to, in Syndicate specifically, the one that takes place in
London.
In London, yeah, it explicitly has the Templars running child labor factories and all that. Like, okay, no, I'm just gonna say it. You guys are the bad guys.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff with the newer future. Well, for your perspective, or from like the Desmond stories, the framing device stories,
yeah.
A lot of the newer ones are portrayed from the angle of Abstergo, the Templars, the bad guys. And there's a lot of unreliable narrative going on there because supposedly you're a user playing an Abstergo game, but they're giving you this viewpoint of the assassins that is like, you know, are we actually getting the full story? Are we playing the assassin, or what Abstergo wants us to see through the assassin's eyes? It gets kind of murky. You know, and I don't know if they sort that out in the newest one, or Syndicate. but at least through Assassin's Creed 4 and Rogue, you really start to lose who's even telling the story at this point. Can I trust the memories I'm seeing? And at that point, well, if I can't, what's the point of showing all that to me? And then that future stuff just becomes another collectible hunt in a game full of collectible hunts.
I mean, I think at a certain point, like once they got past the whole Desmond anthology, if you will, I think the framing device is just there because it's what the series has always done. So they have to put some framing device in there.
I really think it's there because the lead writer or lead game designer, creator, not exactly sure, left before Brotherhood was done, and nobody left had any idea how to end it, so they just kept it going. That series should have ended. I can't remember. I
believe.
You said it much better than I would.
That guy.
Canada.
That guy had no idea what he was the only one that apparently knew what was going on, and now it was clear that nobody there knows what to do. The story should have ended with Assassin's Creed 3, but it didn't because it made too much money. So now they're just going to keep making them until, I don't know, they don't make enough money to justify the sequel.
The good news is, though, at least they're taking a year off. I mean, except for the movie, there was nothing about Assassin's Creed. They didn't even announce the setting for this new one.
God.
So I think it's one of those rare times where maybe the whole series might benefit by taking a year off and not trying to shove something else out the door. I mean, how much more modern can they go, though? I mean, it's going to be weird running around with swords and, 1980s America, wherever they go to next.
At a certain point,
I would love that.
Revolvers.
Yo,
once you have multiple firearms, I mean, the whole idea of sneaking up and running up to people and stabbing them makes no sense because they could just shoot you.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Like when I played the original Deus Ex, I just ran around with the sword the entire time and sliced idiots. Like future cyber swords are amazing. More games should have those.
But back to if we're gonna get back to E3 real quick, I want to stay on the AAA side of things. Titanfall 2 looked awesome. I don't know any other way to say it. I just turned into a little kid watching that. When they started bringing out those grappling hooks and jumping into the mechs and everything, I don't know.
Talk now.
I know everything about
personalities.
Everything about it
like
seems just so cool. I don't even know how else to explain it. It's not articulate. It's not intelligent, but just playing that game and seeing it played just looked awesome. So that's I didn't expect to be as excited about Titanfall 2 as I am after seeing the trailers and stuff, but I really was. I know it's another modern shooter, but even some of the new modes they announced, where it's like the King of the Hill mode, but you have to stay in there and kill like waves of minions and then a boss mech, just seemed like it could be chaotic and fun, and everything about it seemed neat. I don't know. It's one of the few things that I came out of E3 thinking I got to pre-order that.
Yeah, I will say on that note, I don't know what they could have done to make me interested in Call of Duty again. Setting it so far in the future that you're having running space battles where you're climbing onto capital ships and killing people inside, that got me interested again. That looks kind of awesome.
I'd be interested to see with Call of Duty how much of that VR stuff for PlayStation is actually VR, and how much of that space combat is on rails. I've heard that it isn't, but I mean, what Call of Duty does best is set pieces, right? I mean, the crazy, who would have ever expected this set piece is where Call of Duty shines. So those are the moments that people talk about when they talk about Call of Duty. It's the nuke going off, it's no Russian, it's all that stuff. So I mean, Call of Duty has its own world that it can be great in, but I mean, I don't know if I'd ever get into the multiplayer again, which I think is, to justify a $60 Call of Duty purchase, you're really going to have to be a part of.
Yeah, that's the thing that sort of turns me off about the whole Call of Duty package is I'm always sort of interested in the single player because I do like shooters, but I don't really want to get my ass kicked in deathmatch by I was going to say by 12-year-olds, but it's mainly like 30-year-olds who are swearing into the mic. I don't want to get my ass kicked by them all day long. And I have been into some online shooters before. Like, I played Command & Conquer Renegade Online religiously back in the day. But I don't think I could ever get into Call of Duty because the people who play are just too good.
Oh yeah, people in the multiplayer are so savage at this point that there's no point in me even trying anymore.
I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff I saw. If we're gonna steer from the AAA stuff, I don't know if you guys saw that Sea of Thieves demo from Rare. And this is just a larger issue for me in where gaming's kind of at right now. I liked it and I was interested in it, but it seems like another one of probably 100 recent games where if you don't have 4 other friends who are going to constantly play that game with you, I could see it getting kind of annoying. Because, they've got the guy who raises the sails, the guy who steers the ship, the guy who's getting the cannons ready and stuff. I mean, being positive about games, but being cynical about companies and other people, I don't know how that works, online where everybody wants to be the captain, everybody wants to shoot the cannon. Who wants to be the guy who's, trimming the sail? I don't know, but
you just gotta find a Hufflepuff who's willing to do it.
Exactly, some selfless guy who's just that guy. But I don't know. I mean, it's interesting, but I wonder if there's a point where games are getting too social in some ways, where, can I just get an AI to do that for me so I can go around and be a pirate?
Yeah, I always find it weird that I kind of want to be the guy who they just point at, they raise the sail, lower the sail. I want to be that guy. Maybe that's some part of me that always wanted a Star Trek game where you're not the captain, but you're just some guy in one of the nacelles who just presses buttons all day.
I think they're making that game, right?
There was a game for you that was exactly that. It's funny you mentioned that. Did you see the Star Trek VR game?
Oh yeah, I think I saw LeVar Burton and Jerry Ryan, and that's all I remember of that.
Yeah, the bad news is between like the 6 of you who play, you're gonna need like $7,000 worth of virtual reality. But no, it looked pretty cool. There was a mobile game. I can't remember what it was called. Maybe one of you guys can help me out. Where each person linked their phone, and each person was responsible for a certain duty on a ship. I can't remember what it was.
I think it was called Space Team.
Something like that. Yeah. So this is basically a VR version with the Star Trek license of Space Team. So there's a captain, there's a guy who's in charge of the shields, there's a guy who's in charge, and that's exactly what it is. You can raise and lower the shields, you can speed up, slow down, and then everybody has their own little role on the starship. It was one of about 3 VR things I saw that I even thought looked interesting.
I can confirm that the game is called Space Team.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm
quick Wikipedia. All right. Yeah. So I mean, that's one thing that they're starting to show off at E3 now is VR, right? And I'll admit I'm not completely sold on VR yet. It's also super expensive, so I can't really afford it at the moment. But now that seems to be like companies are getting behind this. It's I don't want to say it's exciting because I'm not, again, super enthralled by it yet. But they seem to be like actually putting their money there now and actually sort of investing in VR.
What I would need to see to really kind of make the jump, I would guess, would be something that's a little bit more than gimmicky. Like what they showed from Final Fantasy's VR thing is to me is like it's the perfect example of where they're at right now with VR. It's something. It's a gimmick, It's something that can get better for sure, and it's going to be up to companies to learn how to use it correctly.
It did give us the play as Prompto meme though, which I don't know. To me, that was probably one of the funniest moments of E3, up there with Alex Hunter from the EA conference and highest quality pixels from the Microsoft one.
It's just I think what they try to do a lot at this E3 is kind of blur where the VR starts and ends, if that makes sense. Like when you're watching a demo, they're like specifically Sony's little block of their trailers are like, these are our VR games, right? And then they show like a Final Fantasy 15, crazy battle, but you don't realize that the VR part is only one little subsection of that entire demo they just showed you. They did the same thing with Call of Duty, right? They show you all this crazy playing, and I'm like, there's no way that that's all in VR. And it's not. And then, it pops out, and then there's one section that's VR. So, I mean, I would need, whole games or something like that would really maybe Resident Evil 7, but even that, I don't know. I don't know how much of that is VR.
Yeah, it's really. I think, to be frank, I don't think VR is ready for prime time yet, and maybe in a couple of years we'll start seeing, like big AAA games being played entirely through in VR. But I don't think we're there at the moment, unfortunately.
I agree.
Yeah. So it's neat to see, and I'd be interested to try out a VR headset for myself one day. Maybe I'll put one on, and I'll just be completely sold on it.
Yeah, I agree with the VR thing. At this point, if I had $600, I would much rather that go towards a good 4K monitor at this point.
That's exactly
which will last me for way longer.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think we can talk about E3 and not talk about Death Stranding, though, right? I mean, is that an agreement?
We have to talk about naked Mpreg Norman Reedus.
Yes, we have to talk about that.
I don't. I'm weird. I've played all the Metal Gear Solid games, but I don't know if I would honestly call myself a fan. I don't know. Like, I get so weirded out on that series. There's times where I just feel like I'm just pushing myself to finish it, especially 5. But I wonder, it seems like there's two camps right now where people are excited to see what Kojima does, totally unfiltered, totally without any, any producer or anybody behind him saying, get this game out the door.
That's me. That's me.
And then I think there's people who are worried, that are like, is this going to be kind of his one-off swan song where he just does
is this going to be his Daikatana?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, that'd be so good too.
But I mean, his weirdness was definitely on display in that, whatever it was, 30-second trailer, because I had no idea what I was looking at when I was watching. Is this a game? Is this I heard, it's not his game, it's a vision for what his studio is. I just don't know if you ever know what you're going to get with him until you're actually playing the release product.
He is so baffling. I have no idea what to even think of him. I love the Metal Gear Solid series, almost in spite of itself, because there is so much cringy nonsense in there. But I love most of the characters, and I think they can do that kind of stuff so well. But then in 5, they'll just introduce bikini boob lady.
Wyatt too.
Why? I understand why that was in the game, is because at that point no one was willing to tell Kojima no. Yeah. But man,
I don't know. I mean, I don't see myself as the kind of person who, is usually, in most cases, frothing at the mouth saying, remove all these, male or female characters.
Oh, one of my favorite characters is Bayonetta.
Yeah.
Which is just that taking to the logical extreme.
But then when I got to Quiet, I was like, come on, this is just ridiculous. This girl's running around, Afghanistan as a sniper, where like stuff I would probably, tell the average person, hey, maybe you need to put on a t-shirt or something. I don't know. I'm not trying to shame her or anything, but the whole design of the character, you come back from the base of that one mission, if it happens to be raining, and she just rides on the ground, and the whole thing was weird.
Yeah, I think I can't remember which place did it, but some place did a big they brought in actual fashion designers to judge costumes of different female characters, and when every single one got to Quiet, it said, "What? Why? Who? What? Her boobs would fall out of that thing in like 5 seconds. What? No, she's running around doing this? No."
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point we established that all female characters in video games have magical breasts that just always stay in place.
Magnetic, yeah. So that was weird, and then I didn't. Did you guys see the trailer for Detroit? I can't remember.
Yeah.
With the I don't. Okay, so staying in the realm of weird people, Kojima obviously does his own thing, but so does Quantic Dreams, right?
Oh yeah.
David Cage.
What kind of game is Detroit? I mean, it's got to be like a Heavy Rain-ish type game, right? But is it? I mean, what they showed me looked cool, and I like the idea of your choices, kind of having this like continuum of After Effects. But I really didn't understand what the game was. I mean, did you guys?
So I've played all the Quantic Dream games from Omicron up through.
That's way more than me. I've played half of Fahrenheit.
Yeah, I played all of them. those games really are. They are. I don't mean this and don't mean this as an inherently negative. They are interactive, choose your own adventure games. Yeah. They are. You play as this character, and you are making a you said it well. You're making a continuum of choices, some of which have very small effects, others can have drastic consequences. But at the end of the day, you are still playing through a narrative that they have pre-written for you, and they have accounted for all of the choices you can make. So it's not really like, say, a Skyrim where you can do things that the game designers never intended for you to do. Mm-hmm. It really is more of a like all of your choices. You might think you're making a big deal out of them, but they have all been pre-written for you ahead of time. I think Beyond Two Souls was a just gigantic misstep for them. So I'm cautiously optimistic for Detroit, only because the premise is so interesting. But I have become increasingly dissatisfied with David Cage, because it's clear that at the end of the day, if you're writing a narrative, you should write it well. And I don't think he's a very good writer when it comes down to it.
I played Heavy Rain, and I would definitely agree with you on that point. It seemed like he had a story that he wanted to tell, but he was doing it in totally the wrong medium. Like, if Heavy Rain was a movie, it probably would be a pretty decent movie. But as a game, as a game, I just never felt like I was getting anywhere with it, you know?
I mean, he does sort of fancy himself a filmmaker. In the tutorial for Fahrenheit, he has himself in a director's chair.
I forgot about that, you're right.
Yeah. So I guess I'm not saying that, quote unquote, interactive movies are bad things. But I don't think he as a game designer necessarily understands like the value of interaction in an interactive movie.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like
how to implement it.
It's denying what the medium does well, right? Like, gaming is all about, your interaction with the character, and if you're not really going to have any of that, then just make a movie. That's.
I mean, there's that line of thinking, but there's also like playing Fahrenheit. Like the way you interact with your environment in a lot of cases is through QuickTime event prompts. Right. But it's not just like, press Q to do this or click your mouse button to do that. It's press this sequence of up and down and left and right arrows to do this.
Play DDR to pick up this tray on this floor.
Yeah, and like that, when interactive movies work, it's because there's a one-to-one mapping between your input and an action being performed. But if I have to press random keys on my keyboard for somebody to, I don't know, pick up a plate, then that one-to-one mapping is ruined. And I feel like the interaction doesn't match the interactive movie.
So was there anything that came out of E3 that you guys just got really hyped about? Like, that you would say would be like something that maybe you wasn't really on your radar now, but now it's totally there.
Yeah, there was
one 2.
Yeah, there's Dishonored 2, which I mean was, to be fair, already on my radar.
I already liked the first one, but the second one looks like they have not lost a step, which I was worried they were going to. But yeah, second one still looks pretty hype.
Yeah, and I'm excited to play as Emily with new powers and everything. Yeah, one game actually that I'd heard of but wasn't really on my radar, and they showed it off at Sony's pre-show, was Abzu.
Yeah.
The underwater exploration game. It looks really neat. And then I saw some footage later on YouTube of it, and they're explaining that it's intended to be, this exploration game with huge open areas, and that these open areas are sort of connected to each other. And then you'll find out about the diver's story as you travel through these areas. And I think, to me, it looks really neat. It's, telling a story without any text.
I definitely got kind of like a journey feel from from the trailer.
Like an underwater journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that to me is really neat, because as much as I like the big AAA blockbusters, I also like, quieter exploration games. I like to play all over the map. So yeah, that to me looked like a really exciting upcoming game.
Yeah, mine was also from the Sony show, but It was Horizon. I know a lot of people were on Horizon after last E3, but there just wasn't enough for me besides robot dinosaurs. But actually seeing the game being played, they showed a lot of different stuff, hacking the giant robots and stuff. I'm very interested in. I mean, I know these kind of games, honestly, everybody gets excited for them, then they release, and they have that kind of short timeline. I don't know what to describe that style of game as.
Like
just the
open
action
world, open world action adventure.
Yeah, I think of like Far Cry Primal. Like I had a great time with it for 20 hours, but will I ever go back to it? I don't know. So I mean, I'd like to see that there'd be a little more depth to it, but just actually seeing the gameplay mechanics made me really, really encouraged. I can't remember what E3 it was, probably 2012, 2013, where they had the Year of the Bow. Do you remember just like for some reason every game introduced like bows? So I mean, it's kind of weird to see a new game bringing that back in, but I was excited for it. And
I think this year was the year of the open world zombie game.
Yeah,
got 3 of them.
I checked out on. I gotta tell you, what was the Days Gone one? Yeah, when they showed that at the end of the Sony one.
Oh God, that thing looked like it's basically like, what if we put the Left 4 Dead zombies in State of Decay?
Right, but here's the thing: Dead Rising 4 at least does something crazy with all those numbers and has you make ridiculous, weapons and ridiculous cars and stuff like that, and let you go over the top.
I'm sorry to do this, but I gotta take off.
Oh, okay, man.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show. Yeah.
See you.
All right. Take care.
Yep.
Okay. So now it's just me and TheKappa.
Yeah.
For the rest of this. So yeah,
that Days Gone. I mean, I checked out. I honestly did. I just got bored by it. I can see that the entire thing is, well, we're going to throw a ton of zombies at you, and you figure out how to use the environment and kill them. I read a little bit more about it, and apparently, like, you're kind of like a zombie bounty hunter, and you do work for all these different villages and stuff. But I don't know. I mean, I think I've reached zombie overload at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'd reached zombie overload like 3 years ago. So I have no idea why there are so many zombie games now. But people still buy them, so I guess they're going to keep making them.
Yeah, I would say that probably my biggest disappointment of E3, and it's not disappointment in the game, trying to stay positive, it was Mass Effect Andromeda. I don't know. I was dumb. I followed them on, social media. They were promising, the world. It was going to be such an awesome reveal. And it was so bare in what I expected to see from a game that's really not that far down the road.
Yeah. It'll probably get delayed again.
Yeah. And I mean, so you learn the protagonist's name. It's Ryder. He's going to have, or he or she is going to have family. And it's going to be more of becoming a hero than already being a hero like Shepard was by the time you jump into Mass Effect 1.
Yeah.
So all that stuff's cool and all, but man, I would have loved to see a little bit more.
EA basically showed no gameplay at all at their conference.
Yeah.
It was bizarre. I mean, they had time for a 2-minute monologue from Alex Hunter. I can't do his voice. I wish I could. Alex Hunter. No.
Yeah, he should be narrating like 90% of the trailers.
I like, that was the most baffling moment for E3, because I thought like, for a second, I don't really follow soccer at all. So for a second I thought they brought out a real footballer named Alex Hunter. Then I looked it up, and it turns out that Alex Hunter was the name of a Scottish footballer who died in the mid-1980s.
Oh wow.
That is actually, like, it's not like Wikipedia Alex Hunter. It's not like you come up to a disambiguation page. Like, that's what it links you to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was like, somebody didn't think twice when they were naming this character. Yeah. And now it's way too late. But yeah, EA's conference was just baffling on so many levels. There was like no gameplay showed off.
Yeah, I wonder if EA is trying to stick to doing its own thing now. I mean, I think you're starting to see a lot of the major producers just sort of back off from E3, announce stuff on their own terms. I
mean, Nintendo's already practically doing that.
Oh yeah, Nintendo's pretty much out of E3 at this point, and I can see Blizzard and Activision going the same way. Blizzard already has BlizzCon for all their Blizzard stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Activision doesn't even do a conference.
No, yeah. So I mean, I don't think you're too far down the road of E3 being more of a tech show, which is where they were worried about it going 5 or 6 years ago when they stopped having the public go to E3, and it started just being very, boring stuff out of E3. Hey, we're going to install a new disk drive in our system, and it's going to have a different nanometer size chip, and people started checking out, and they try to get E3 exciting again. Like I said earlier, last year I thought we were seeing the beginning of something new, but nope, we went right back to where we were.
Yeah, so I don't know. It seems like E3 to me it's obviously a trade show, and the reason it exists is for press and investors.
Mm-hmm.
But they sort of want to keep up the fiction that it's also for the gamers, so they keep throwing the gamers bones. But at the end of the day, what they're doing is they're trying to sell their merchandise to investors.
Yeah, and I don't, like I said, I don't begrudge them that. These are companies. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. As much as people may love Sony or Microsoft or whoever their company is, they're in it to make money, and they're going to do it whatever way they think makes sense. I did like, speaking of broad company stuff, I do like Microsoft's new PC strategy. I mean, that's great news for me. I own an Xbox One and a PC, but if I can cross-play with everything, and I buy it for the Xbox and I own it for the PC as well, that's interesting. I mean, I'm not gonna turn down free games, so yeah, I'm glad that they're doing that.
Yes, I'm glad because I don't own an Xbox One, so if I can get some of these games on PC, then it saves me having to get an extra console, because I went PlayStation this gen for some reason.
Yeah. That's a personal choice as much as anything is these days. But
I mean, I went PlayStation because of the games that are on PlayStation,
or where your friends are, things like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're moving to an era where even with a few exclusives being separated out, you're getting almost always the same games between the three systems now: PC, Xbox, and Sony. So it makes sense from Microsoft's point. If you can get 2 out of the 3, because let's face it, PC is a Windows platform that Microsoft is still trying to sell. That makes sense, profit wise for Microsoft, but it also works great for me as a consumer if I can play Gears of War 4 on my PC.
And part of me, and I might be overestimating Valve's influence here. Part of me thinks that they got spooked by SteamOS.
Mm-hmm. Well, they shouldn't have, but
I mean, there's no chance SteamOS is ever going to take off.
I mean, being the kind of guy who's PC gamed, all my adult life and into being a kid, building my own computers, keeping up to date with the current graphics cards, stuff like that. I know what I'm doing, but even when I started seeing those Steam machines get announced with SteamOS, I was like, this is going to go nowhere. And it's weird for Valve to make a misstep like that when it comes to that stuff, but I think
Valve has sort of been in their own little bubble for like the past 5 or 6 years.
They flew close to the sun on this one, I'll tell you that, because I mean, I don't know anyone, and I know lots of PC gamers from over the years. I don't know anyone who even was interested, and I know people were interested in the Steam controller, but even once the Xbox Elite controller got announced, well, that's already got built-in support for so many games. So yeah, I mean, I don't know where.
I do know people who own Steam controllers, but
well, if you remember the last year E3 as well, there was a PC show. Do you remember?
Yeah, there was one this year as well.
Yeah, but it was a lot less specifics. I mean, I guess some Civ 6 stuff. That's all I really remember from it. But
from this year, you mean?
Yeah.
I remember some stuff that we can talk about in a second. Yeah. So the PC gaming show. But one thing they showed off. I mean, they had sort of the actual show, and they had a post show. And one thing that I was interested in, they showed off the post show, was Planet Coaster.
Oh, actually. Okay.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, there are a bunch of theme park games that are in development. There's Roller Coaster Tycoon World. There's Parkitect. Planet Coaster. I was a huge Roller Coaster Tycoon junkie back in the day. So I'm excited to see Planet Coaster because it's all the old Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 devs working on it. Whereas Roller Coaster Tycoon World is a completely new studio, a studio that hasn't worked on. It's mainly worked on mobile games before, I believe. And what I've seen so far from Roller Coaster Tycoon World has been really disappointing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's another roller coaster game out there that was announced. I know Microsoft just had whatchamacallit,
Scream Ride?
Scream Ride, yeah, and then there's Planet Coaster as well.
Yeah, so Planet Coaster is the one that was at the PC Gaming Show.
Got it.
Yeah, Roller Coaster Tycoon World is when they announced, well, not when they announced it, like the first gameplay trailer they showed, it looked atrocious. I'm not usually one to get all up in arms about graphics, but the water didn't even have reflections.
Man, yeah. And if you're gonna do stuff on like that on PC, you're really gonna make a lot of people upset because
like it looked worse than Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. I'm like, that's not an exaggeration. It looked worse than a game from the mid 2000s, and that's just not acceptable in this day and age. And since they originally was going to release, I think it was supposed to release at the end of 2015, and now it's still in like a beta. And they put it in Steam Early Access, and the reviews have just all been negative.
Yeah.
It's just buggy, it's broken. I mean, bugs and breaks will be fixed eventually.
And on a later episode, we're definitely going to have to address Early Access, because, man, that's one of the things I can go on for a while about.
Oh, you've actually played Early Access games?
So many.
I've actually never played an Early Access game. I've been tempted before, but I never played one. But yeah, so it's Early Access, and everybody's hating on it. And apparently there's just no freedom to build anything. And Planet Coaster is the one that has all the old RCT3 devs behind it anyway.
Yeah, it's Frontier, right? The guys who did
Frontier.
Elite, yeah.
Yeah. So I think originally I was really, wedded to the Roller Coaster Tycoon name, for some reason that I can't explain. But now I think I'm gonna hitch my wagon to Planet Coaster when it comes out.
Sounds like I can tell you from my experience playing Elite that that's a great team of devs, at least on the Elite side of things. I mean, really, they've made some mistakes. The game's not perfect or anything like that, but they've done a great job about staying engaged with the community and fixing what needs to be fixed. They really have a lot of respect for me for how they handle a lot of the stuff in Elite. I know there's grumblings about the newest patch, but I haven't checked in on it. But I really have a high opinion of them.
Yeah, they seem like they know what they're doing. Maybe it's all running on super high-end hardware, but the game looks nice. It seems like you've got a lot of freedom to build. They've made you can do curved paths now and everything. They've got the spline-based coaster building tool. It looks like it will be something where you'll be able to live out your theme park creation fantasies, which is the only reason they make these games. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that, but we'll see what it's like when it comes out. So is there anything else E3 related you want to discuss before we move on to another topic?
I mean, that's pretty much. I think we've covered a lot of it.
We talked about E3 for way longer than I intended, but that's all right.
We can always chop some out if we need to.
Pardon me?
We can always chop some out if we need to, I guess.
Yeah, we can always edit stuff because we have the magic of post-production.
Exactly.
But yeah, so E3, it happened. It was somewhat underwhelming, but there was some neat stuff. Go play as Prompto with the highest quality pixels. Make Ignore and Redis. I think
all those teraflops.
E3. 6 teraflops. I had to look up what a flop was after that because I knew it was something to do with processing power. But apparently it's floating point operations per second.
Right. And I don't know what that means.
I don't know what I don't really know what a floating point operation is or how difficult it is for a computer to do a floating point operation. I know that floating point arithmetic is different from, a computer just adding 2 integers together. I know that, but I don't know what that means in terms of processing power.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to assume that more is better. So, I mean, if somebody comes out with 8 teraflops, I'll know that's the one I need to buy.
Yeah, so I know more is better. I just have no idea of absolutely what 6 teraflops means. But that's fine. Okay, so that's E3. I think the next thing we had on our agenda to talk about for this particular edition of the podcast is sound effects.
Sure.
Because we talked about E3, and E3 is a great showcase for things that look really cool and cutting-edge graphics with the highest quality pixels. Sorry, I'm going to keep making fun of Microsoft for that. But one thing that doesn't get shown off so much at E3 is sound, right. Sound design. And so what I want to talk about for a bit today is what are your favorite or most memorable sound effects?
So I kind of divided this up into like an all-time list and then a recent list.
Oh, you have a list. You prepared.
Yeah, I've got 5. So
all right, let's hear your top 5.
This is my number 1 of all time is in Mass Effect 1 when you get the sniper rifle and you go into assassination mode. The scope kind of turns on and you hear like kind of like a high pitched whirring.
Yeah.
And then when you actually shoot the rifle, it's like a very deep bass, like choom, like it sounds like you're.
I remember that because I played as an infiltrator.
Yeah, exactly. So it's such like a great sound effect. Like it actually feels like you're shooting this heavy duty, sniper rifle. Not so much all the other guns in Mass Effect are a little tinny or a little, especially when you get down to the pistols and things like that. But it's such kind of like a powerful sound. And usually, you get that ding, 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 ding of your overheat right afterwards, and you've got to reload. And if you made a great headshot, it's very rewarding to just hear that high pitch whir, the deep sniper rifle shot, the overload sound, but you're just looking at something that's no longer there because you made a good shot. So that's probably my number 1 favorite. I guess it's more of a sequence, but that's probably my favorite sound effect.
Yeah.
My second one. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, that is really neat. I like how it's even further sort of enhanced in subsequent Mass Effects where. Like when you get the headshot, you see this is gonna sound like a horrible person. When you see like the head explode.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's really satisfying.
On the Geth, when you get a good headshot on the Geth, they kind of go into like that kneeling position, like they just like given up, and then they explode. It's just like, I mean, it's such a brilliant series of events. You can tell that game does have a lot of
thought and care.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Put into it.
And it also kind of nudges you towards that style of play in a lot of areas, which I think is smart. And just playing a sniper in that game feels really rewarding. Second one, and this is a current one, and it is the hit marker sound in Overwatch.
Okay.
I actually read up on this one, and people were saying, "What is this sound? It sounds so great. It's a very satisfying sound. It's the sound of a beer bottle being opened." So I guess they went out and they sampled the sound of opening a beer bottle, that little like sound, that half a second of the air escaping. That's the hit marker sound in Overwatch.
Nice.
So as you start to kind of like, especially when you're playing with some of the faster shooting characters like a Tracer or somebody like that, you start to hear just this sound over and over again. I don't know if it's just one of those like Pavlovian sounds or something, but the more you hear it, you're like, wow, it's a rewarding hit marker sound. Very soft, so it kind of blends into the game and it's not overpowering anything else.
But it's really satisfying to hear.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love that one. Probably my third favorite, and this is more of kind of a personal one, I guess. Warcraft 2. It had the thing where if you clicked on characters, they would say different lines over and over again. The stop touching me, the what we do, those kind of things. If you click on a ship long enough, one of the human ships, they just start puking. I discovered this as a kid. It was the funniest thing to me. I probably did it 10 times in a row just to make sure that it was really happening. But like just they're saying like stop rocking the boat, I'm getting seasick, and it kind of progresses the more you keep clicking on it, and then right at the end they just start making a puking sound. And as a kid I thought it was hilarious. I still as an adult think it's pretty darn funny. So it made the list.
What's number 4?
This one is from The Division, and it's probably it probably isn't as great of a sound as it used to be, at least for me. But in The Division, there's the dark zone concept where you're in there fighting for things. You pick up loot, you attach it to a rope, and you go out of there. So in The Division, one of my favorite sounds was there's a very like metallic, clingy sound when you attach the bag you're extracting with a carabiner to the rope that the helicopter takes your gear out of there. So it's usually at the end of a very tense 2 minutes of gaming where you've got this great loot, you're running to the helicopter to extract it, you start the extraction, you're trying to keep your eye out for not just any NPC enemies but for any rogues or anything like that. So it's very tense. And then when you finally get that clinking sound on the rope, it's like a mission complete, but all in one sound. However, the latest expansion, or not the expansion, but the latest patch of Division now allows rogues to cut the rope.
Oh no! So it's not like that safe harbor sound that it was before.
No, you click it on there and that's not it. You still got to sit there and defend it till it's gone. So I'm sure that a lot of people right now don't really resonate as much with that sound as I used to when I played Division. But I mean, it just was the best feeling at the end of a long extraction, just hear that clink and know, whatever happens now, at least my loot's gone. So that was my fourth one. And my fifth is another kind of current shooter. Is in Destiny, I played a Titan, and the ultimate that I like to use was the Hammer of Soul. Which sounds very tough and like everything in that Bungie does. I'm sure it's all capitalized nouns and things like that. It has a great activation sound, kind of like a metallic clang. And then as you throw each hammer, there's a very deep bam sound as you throw the hammer. But then the hammers regenerate in your hand, so you can throw the next one, and it's almost like a mystical sound. So kind of like the Mass Effect one, it's a very like a
bassy sort of vroom sound,
yeah. And then so it's like the Mass Effect one. It's more like a chain of sounds, So like you got the clang of the activation, and it's loud. It's broadcast through the whole. Like if you're in a death match, everybody hears it, so they know, hey, it's time to run away from this madman throwing fire hammers. And then then you got the bass sound of the hammer throwing and hammer hitting, and then you've got kind of like that magic-y kind of, I don't know how to describe it, like kind of like a higher pitch where the hammer reappears in your hand and you're ready to go again. So it's very like a rewarding sequence until the whole thing ends up going away.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think a lot of sound designers and Foley artists get right in games is they make the sounds rewarding to hear. Right, so you want to hear, that sequence of sounds that leads to, throwing the hammer and it regenerating in your hand, and that I think is an underappreciated art.
Oh, I agree.
So I was going to say I only have one answer because I'm not the Keener kid, apparently. I have fallen so far from my elementary school days. No, one of my favorite sound effects. I'll surprise nobody by saying is from Commander Keen 4, because I'm obsessed with Commander Keen, as many AV clubbers know. It's the sound that plays when you collect a raindrop in Commander Keen 4. Have you ever played Commander Keen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that sound that when you collect a raindrop. So back in those days, people had their crappy Sound Blaster cards or whatever, and so sound effects in games are really arcadey, and so they had to be really distinctive to stand out. And so the sound effect that plays when you collect a drop of water, it's sort of like this plinking sound, but that also sounds like something sort of being squished, like something squelching. So it's this really satisfying, high-pitched squelching / plinking sound that plays when you collect a raindrop. And as we've transitioned away from the era of the arcadey sort of games, and everybody's got like a full orchestra on their motherboard now.
Right.
We've sort of lost these really memorable sounds, and like part of that's games becoming more quote unquote realistic, and it would be really weird to hear arcade beeps and boops in like Call of Duty. But I think more abstract or cartoony games could still stand to use these kinds of distinctive sound effects that we don't hear anymore.
What I'm thinking about is I haven't finished Doom recently, the Doom remake. I'm thinking about that has some of those comeback sounds in it. Not as digitized, I guess, as it. And I'm thinking about Commander Keen was Carmack and Romero, right?
Yeah, it was. Well, they worked on it. It was designed by Tom Hall.
Okay.
Originally, he was the lead guy on it, and then it was Carmack, Romero, and like all those people.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think about back in the old Apogee days. That was when you would get like the disc and it would have like Commander Keen, and what was the Halloween themed one?
Halloween Harry?
Halloween Harry, yeah. And then have all those different games on it. And I would always like play through.
Dude, I was like 5 when all those games were out. So
probably about 12 or 13, but I mean,
yeah, like Commander Keen was like my first game.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, and yeah, I definitely see as a kid how those types of sounds draw you in. And even going back and playing the new Doom, when they have those areas where you go into the old Doom areas, and they've got the old sound effects. They've got it all, and I'm like the doo-doo when you pick up armor and things like that. It's a very cool sound. I do think that because they were limited by what they could do sound-wise, they put a lot more effort, I guess, into instead of making it realistic, making it sound like, hey, maybe this is what it sounds like when you pick up armor or health or whatever.
Yeah, the Wolfenstein, the New Order, actually had something like that, where there's spoilers. There's an Easter egg where you can play a level from the old Wolfenstein, and yeah, they bring back all the old sound effects, and it's really neat because you can hear similar sound effects in the main game, but they like bring back the old ones for the retro bits.
Yeah, it's a smart move. I mean, it really is because, I don't know if kids these days have ever played original Doom or original Wolfenstein or any of those other games, and if you can expose them to it, I mean, I don't know if I would honestly, if somebody said, hey, should I go back and play original Doom, I'd probably say no. But it's cool to see where things come from, in my opinion, even if you don't really, care to play the whole thing. I think it's cool to see where Doom and Quake and Wolfenstein come from. Even as a kid, I probably would have thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about the progress video games have made over the course of my lifetime. I mean, I've seen them go from mainly, 2D affairs on a Super Nintendo to, something technically stunning like Uncharted 4, which I just finished a few weeks ago, and like seeing that evolution has been really fascinating and really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I know you were saying that Commander Keen was one of your earliest ones. For mine was a game called Donald Duck's Playground. And I don't know if anybody's ever, like, this is like when people talk to me about, like, their Oregon Trail or their whatever. Like, mine was always Donald Duck's Playground. And if I had to say, if it had, like, a modern-day analog, it would be one of those, like Japanese dating sim games where, like, you have to, like, budget certain time during a day. You have to go out and work and make money. And, like, but instead of, dating some, crazy girl, you build a playground. So it's kind of like the opposite of like those types of games. And it was a stupidly addictive game as a kid. It was done by Al Lowe, who's one of those types of, Disney / gaming guys. He's always kind of been one of those, names that just kind of popped back up a lot in the Sierra. He's the guy who did Leisure Suit Larry, which I'm sure he's most famous for. But yeah, this.
Al Lowe. Sorry, I misheard you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Leisure Suit Larry.
Yep. But I mean, to play this Donald Duck's Playground at the time, I don't know why it drew me in so much. But even today, I still think about, well, that was my first game. Why did I even get into this? Because that was a terrible, terrible. Even as a kid, okay, so I got to go make money to build a playground, and then there wasn't no reward. You just built the playground. But yeah, that was my first probably memory.
So my first game, which I would never play this. I used to see my dad playing it. Was the original Prince of Persia.
Oh man! Yeah.
And I was like 3 years old at the time, so I couldn't comprehend the concept of soldiers. So whenever I saw the guards in that game, because I didn't know the word soldier, I was 3 years old. I used to call them killies because they would kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a dumb kid. Yeah, so I was fascinated by Prince of Persia, and then I picked up later Commander Keen, and then a whole whack load of edutainment games because the 90s were the peak edutainment era.
I remember it was always like a lemonade stand game, or like I don't know, there was always just something where they were trying to teach you something very vague, but I just always tried to play the game and not learn as best I could. So.
Oh, my parents got me Math Rescue and Word Rescue, and I swear you could go into the options and turn off math problems in Math Rescue. So it's I was intelligent enough to do the math problems, I just didn't want to do them.
Yeah,
so I turned them off, and it just became a number collection game.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah. So also, Math Rescue and Word Rescue had great sound effects because, of course, they couldn't put guns in the platformers because they're edutainment games. So what they did was they gave you a bucket of slime, and there are monsters running around the levels. And what you could do is when you were near a monster, you could summon like a helper dude who would turn out a bucket of slime on these monsters to defeat them.
Oh, yeah. Kind of reminds me of what was that old Nintendo game? Jeez, I can't remember now. With the jelly beans and the blob.
A boy and his
What is
blob?
blob? Yeah.
A boy. Oh, it is a boy and his blob. Okay. I thought that was okay. They remade it. Yeah, that's why. I was gonna say I thought it was more recent, but they remade it.
Oh, did they? Huh.
Yeah.
Everything gets remade. That's the new thing.
Yeah. So I know it is a relatively recent game, but that's because it was apparently on the old. Was it on the old Super Nintendo?
Oh no, I think it was Nintendo Entertainment System.
Oh wow, that old.
Yeah, it was an old one. I'm pretty sure. Got the handy dandy look up right here. Yeah, NES.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was not a good looking game.
Yeah, like I've seen screenshots of the remake and it looked super beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, that game's I don't know, for some reason I find like those squelching noises in games really satisfying. Because when you hear a squelching noise in real life, it's usually because your shoes are waterlogged or something, and it's just the worst feeling in the world.
Noise. Like people don't like the word moist. People don't like the moist sound either.
I wonder if we could get people to like turn off this podcast. We just say the word moist over and over and over again. Moist, moist, moist. Yeah, but it's so weird. That's so satisfying to hear in a game, but when you hear it in real life, you're just like, cringe.
You know what I just found out, actually, in researching Boy and His Blob? It was made by the team that made Pitfall. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, that makes sense now.
Pitfall is not a game that I have played.
Yeah. You can tell your dad, though. Maybe he'll get into it.
Like, my dad, nowadays, his gaming diet is this Breakout clone that he had a BlackBerry for a while, and the only game on that he could play was this Breakout clone that he got surprisingly good at. Now he has an iPhone and no games for it, so I don't know what he does anymore. But for a while, I was like super obsessed. Like, he had two games on his BlackBerry, Breakout and this Word Finder game, and I would kick his ass at this Word Finder game, but like I could not, for the life of me, get past like a level in Breakout. But he was just like a genius at it.
Maybe they need to have some kind of microtransaction. You know, that's every mobile game I think of these days.
Yeah, it actually didn't have microtransactions in it. I was impressed. I was like, you can't pay money to get extra balls in this game. I was impressed with that game. Yeah. Parents playing video games.
another topic, I guess.
Yeah.
How do we get our old people playing games?
Get them all a Wii. Those are popular at retirement homes, apparently.
Absolutely.
So, is that all we wanted to discuss, or?
I think that's pretty much it, man. It sucks that Banner couldn't stick around a little more and Lopside didn't show up. Maybe we can, I don't know, edit their stuff in on the.
We can just
stuff.
Edit in like an Elmo voice saying, "I'm Lopside down," and just he'll say that at like 10-minute intervals. And that'll be his
great,
presence.
Man. This was great. Can't wait to see what it sounds like, and definitely be looking forward to more.
Yeah, and you and BannerThief were great on this podcast, and it would be great if we could all get together again and talk about in more depth some of the topics that you brought up as potential discussion topics. I'll note them down in my journal.
Cool.
All right, so that brings the inaugural edition of the Avocado Gamescast to a close. And we hope that you fellow AV Club After Darkers enjoyed hearing us yammer on about games for 90 minutes. Thanks for listening.